We have 5 lecturers, 5 speakers. So I would say that we can allocate to each of you about 15 minutes, and maybe after that we have 10-15 minutes for Q&A session, because also afterwards we have another panel and I'm speaker there. But anyway, I think 15 minutes, is it enough for each of you?
Yeah,
I'll try to track the time, but however, let's say for the last 2-3 minutes, I'll let you know. Miss Julia Patrizi, I think she joined us.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. And we are missing a couple of speakers, Soochi, Pathak, and Nahid Hasan.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here, ma'am.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Oh, I think everybody's here, right? So,
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm Tinatin from Georgia, and I think that I was Ed in the end in your section.
okay, so we have Mr. Valiyev, Miss Qurku, Miss Soochi, Giorgi Pareshishvili. No, you are replacing.
No,
because I don't see. I don't see him here, but maybe he'll join us, and Miss Julia. So we can start, right? Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
You're ready. So our panel is titled New Nationalist Implications in Power Politics. And I suppose it's related to the new development, not only in Europe, but actually worldwide, in the new context of new world order and the new impact of this re-emergence of nationalist and nationalistic movements. And let's see how these movements it's affecting the global power politics and the way how leaders maybe are managing this new paradigm. So Mr. Orkhan Valiyev from Khazar University, and I see here in my program, you are also a member of CESRAN International Board.
Yes.
Very nice to meet you. Actually, I have to to confess myself that I am following you and occasionally I'm reading your writings. And it's quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to read maybe your extended paper.
I hope we will be able to meet in face-to-face in the coming years.
I really hope so. Maybe, I don't know, I'm going in December in Azerbaijan, Yerevan.
Oh, great. We can meet in Baku.
So let's hope that we can do that. So the floor is yours, please, about 15 minutes, if you can manage. Anyway, just between us, I don't see somebody.
I'll try my best. First of all, greetings all of you from Baku, Khazar University. First of all, I should share my presentation, I think. Is it available for everyone?
Yes, I can see, yes.
Okay. I'm Orkhan Valiyev. I came with a debatable paper that I will try to debate nationalism in the South Caucasus in the context of integrated nationalism. That it's somehow the new in terms of South Caucasus. Maybe we can say that former the colonial countries and nations. So as you know, nationalism, or let's say just flag waving, is just symbolizes nationalism is everywhere and became the global trend. So in this case, I have the special research question that how can integrated nationalism serve as a viable alternative in terms of aggressive and destructive nationalism in the South Caucasus, in terms of course, in the case of Azerbaijan, Armenia, and the Georgia. Hypothesis is that integrated nationalism can mitigate the radical nationalism that could be a threat for young nations of the South Caucasus. So in this case, support regional stability by promoting inclusivity, facilitating international integration that the three nations need this integration, international integration. So addressing historical and ethnic grievances constructively, enhancing cooperation among the South Caucasus states, which is much more important, specifically after the recent tensions. So conceptual framework, the types of nationalism. Of course, I'm not going to talk about the classic types of nationalism theoretically from Gender and so on. I'm gonna dealing with in terms of the new nationalism. So in this case, aggressive or destructive nationalism is just refer to the big nations of the modernity. For example, let's say the American nationalism. We can witness the aggressive and destructive nationalism in the US in terms of the Trump's policy and other, let's say, the founding nations of modern time. So multicultural nationalism is a new, the different alternatives that has been proposed by scholars, including, for example, Tariq Mudit from Bristol University, UK. So integrated nationalism that I will try to propose in terms of the South Caucasus. So in this case, the key concepts are the state survival, regional security, and international legitimacy. Actually, state survival is referred to all the states, including the US, Turkey, Russia, and so on. So, but regional security and international legitimacy is much more referred to the small, or let's say young nations of the post-Soviet or post-Cold War era, specifically in terms of in the AI age. So aggressive and destructive nationalism, as I mentioned before, in terms of they say Trump's era specifically started over there, and even we can witness its traces in Russian policy and so on. That has been trying to deconstruct of the modern establishment in terms of law, politics, and so on. So we can say that yes, we are being witnessed the post-Westphalian or Westphalian era. So the law or juridical system doesn't work. So that's why nationalism came back to the stage again, and all the states and the nations tried to integrate their national policy in terms of the nationalism. So in terms of the South Caucasus, a different landscape. As you know, South Caucasus is geographically a small place landscape, but has different, how to say, the issues that could have the regional or global effects. Armenia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia are the main nations of this region, the former colonist nations, or maybe we can say periphery. I wrote my PhD thesis through Miroslav Roche's theory, small nation theory, we can say model, while defining the nation-building process in Azerbaijan in 19th century. So that's why these nations are former colonies or peripheries of the colonies anyway. But still needing consolidating national identity in this uncertain time and subject to internal and external pressures, because the new nationalism requires all the states to reimagine their reshape their, how to say, the policy to survive their states. These threats is referred to all the nations, all the states. But specifically the young nations of the, let's say, the post-Soviet or post Cold War era are feeling these threats much more strictly, directly. That's why they need different types of nationalism. For example, in terms of the South Caucasus, the three nations of the region cannot, or let's say shouldn't use just the destructive or the aggressive nationalism, or shouldn't try to integrate those nationalism, because in order to survive in this uncertain time, uncertain time because, for example, the United Nations, which has been established in order to, how to say, contribute to the establishment of the peaceful and security in the regions, let's say. But however, its institutions failed to solve how to say these problems, let's say in terms of Ukraine and Palestine and any different issues. So that's why the states need their how to say own national strategy that would facilitate to be survived in this uncertain time. So in this case, integrated nationalism that aimed not to compete with destructive and aggressive nationalism aggressive nationalism. So rather, integrated nationalism aimed to develop strategy in terms of this three nations of the South Caucasus to develop strategy that would facilitate integration to the international community that will, how to say, would open a new door to be survived, to keep the national sovereignty, because we are being faced uncertain times, and this uncertain time is much more referred to this young nations of the post-Soviet time. So in terms of the Azerbaijani case, as you know, the Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia, the post-independence appeared in the early of 19th century. Three of the nations declared their independence in Tbilisi in 1918 on May. So, and then they restored their independence right after the dissolution of the USSR. So, and the three of nations try to develop the new different types of the policies anyway. But now, specifically after the Second Karabakh War, that Azerbaijan liberated its invaded territories and started to negotiations with Armenia, the peace peace issues, and reached the important milestone in terms of peace negotiations. So, and also Azerbaijan and Georgia has a strategic relations right after the restoration of independence. I mean, in the early of 1990s. But however, the three nations of the South Caucasus need urgently the different types of the national strategy, because it seems that yes, nationalism is how to say. They came to this stage, and in order to be survived, all the states, including these three nations of South Caucasus, need nationalism as an inevitable solution. So the question is that what kind of nationalism? Because we cannot, let's say in terms of Azerbaijan cannot integrate to the destructive nationalism of the US, for example, because its capacity and aims and the historical context is totally different. And Azerbaijan's geography and the problems much more different. So in this case, the member of the South Caucasus, Azerbaijan need different types of nationalism. So in this occasion, Azerbaijan started to adopt the new, how to say, the national strategy. For example, multicultural nationalism just was one of them that started right after the 1910s by the decree of the president. What was its aim? It was aimed to develop inclusive the national strategy that would embrace all the ethnic and the religious minorities under the Azerbaijani national identity. And over the 15 years, they proved that yes, it worked. But on the other side, as it's mentioned, inclusive of ethnic and religious minorities, but on the other side, right after the Second Karabakh War, and also the uncertainty of the global politics, the regionalization, regional cooperation became the new inevitable for the states, because in terms of, let's say, the migration and regional global the conflicts in terms of Ukraine, Palestine, and Iran, and so on. And also artificial intelligence that started to threat the national sovereignty of the states. So, due to the limited capacity of the nation states, regional nationalization or regional cooperation became a new inevitable for the nation states. So in this case, the Azerbaijan, including Turkey, started to, as a leading country, establish organization of Turkic states, a new part of the Azerbaijani how to say, the national policy in the 21st century. And also, in terms of the Azerbaijani case, the integrated nationalism, as you know, the national language is the main issue for the nation states, as the leading scholars of the nationalism studies, Ernest Kellner, mentioned that right after the Industrial Revolution, the nations became the main issue for the nation states. They needed to standardize an official language. So, but however, from my perspective, I believe that yes, in terms of the South Caucasus, let's say in terms of Azerbaijan, yes, because of the historical background that started second part of the 19th century. So even in terms of national language strategy, Azerbaijan need different the strategy, national strategy, Azerbaijani national language, specifically right after the Second Karabakh War and the historical victory became then superized in Azerbaijani society. But however, promoting Turkish, Russian, and English in Azerbaijani society, from my perspective, would be part of the integrated nationalism that would facilitate to integrate international community that to be survive Azerbaijani state in this uncertain time. So in terms of Armenian case, I argue that yes, three of these nations need integrated nationalism in order to survive, because survive won't possible with only one case, or Azerbaijan or Georgia, should be based on the three nations of these how to say nations, because region is just belong to the three nations of this region. So the main issue, the main obstacle in terms of the Armenian case, in terms of the integrated nationalism, the constitutional reform, because as you know, constitution is the main part of the national social contract of the nations. So throughout the modern time. So but however, the Armenians, the constitution has direct how to say the claim over Azerbaijani territory, which is recognized by the international law. And also liberated after the Second Karabakh War in 2020. But however, the Armenian needs to the reform in terms of the how to say constitution. Constitution to reduce territorial irredentism, because okay, nationalism is inevitable solution to be survived in this uncertain time of global politics. But however, it doesn't, and it shouldn't mean that yes, the young nations of the region should prioritize irredentist nationalism, for example, to have some direct or indirect claim over each other's. I think it shouldn't be tolerated, and it should be the new threat to regional, how to say, integration, regional security, and peace in the region. So the main issue is that the potential, how to say, for integrated nationalism they need to diffuse regional tension, for example. So and also, of course, the key the peace negotiation with Armenia and Azerbaijan. So in this case, the role of the Georgia's the case, as you know, the Georgia started with the conflict with Russia in the early of 1910s, like we can say, Actually, the conflict became then, how to say, the main issue in the South Caucasus right after the restoration of the independence for Azerbaijan and Georgia in the region, the rest of the region as well. So that some scholars compared Georgia to Ukraine in the regional discourse, something like that. So integrated nationalism in terms of the Georgians, they could reinforce territorial integrity, they promote minority inclusion, and also contribute to regional stability. So in this case, we can talk about the role of the integrated nationalism. So which is the kind of nationalism that emphasizes regional cooperation, internal inclusivity, and inclusivity that would, how to say, embrace all religious and the ethnic minorities. We can witness in Azerbaijani society, we witnessed this issue in terms of the Second Karabakh War. As I mentioned before, Azerbaijan started the multicultural policy in terms of national strategy, and it worked in the Second Karabakh War because you can witness, you can find the traces of the support all the ethnic and religious groups, including majority and minority, to the states, how to say, the policy over the liberation of the invaded territory in part of Karabakh. So that's why it worked, is much more important, and also international engagement. International engagement is much more important for the young nation of the region to be survived, because the threat is being felt much more rather in terms of in comparison with other big nations, because let's say U.S. Trump's destructive and aggressive nationalism's aim is different to compete with China. But the young nations of the South Caucasus national strategy would be different, should be different in order to be survived, to keep their independence and national sovereignty alive. So the second part is just avoiding extremes of both radical nationalism and identity race is much more important as well. The support sovereignty through integration and not isolation, because I believe that, I argue that in terms of the integrated nationalism, the three nations of the region need to, how to say, recognize their national sovereignty, because to be survive starts this point. Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia need to recognize each other as a sovereign, how to say, entity. Azerbaijan and Georgia, it doesn't matter whether the threats, the uncertain issues, developed the rational and pragmatic strategy between Azerbaijan, between Tbilisi and Baku. This, how to say, the process needed involvement of Armenia to this process to recognize each other's territorial integrity as a sovereign, how to say, entity. Otherwise, it would be the problem. So, I will try to complete in order to, how to say, to take time for Q&A questions part. So the policy implications in terms of this integrated nationalism for governments, for international actors, and for academia. To promote inclusive the language, minority, and foreign policy strategies is much more important. So international actors, the support integrated nationalism through diplomatic and economic engagement. So in this case, it's much more important how to say, the language that which is being used by the governments in Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan as well at the same time, because as I mentioned at the beginning, nationalism is already became an inevitable solution for the states. In that case, for example, the nations are being how to say, assimilated in order to survive their states. So that's why, for example, we cannot, and maybe we shouldn't talk about how to say, the liberal democracy or something like that, because even we cannot find its traces, let's say, even Anglo-Saxon countries, because the situation of the global politics is different and the requirement has changed. So we are on the way, let's say, establishment process. So on this establishment process, the three nations of the region, South Caucasus, need integrated nationalism in order to survive, keep their, independence and national the sovereignty. So for academia, expand research on nationalism, but however, the academic research, from my perspective, from my paper, shouldn't promote irredentless nationalism. For example, Azerbaijan started had a war with Second Karabakh War, right? Liberated its invaded territories. But however, Azerbaijan just focused on liberation, not intervention. So Azerbaijani national strategy in terms of Second Karabakh War was not based on irredentless nationalism. It was based on just liberation. Liberated the territory which is recognized by international law as part of Azerbaijani Republic. That's so Azerbaijan. That's why launched a war against liberation, not irredentism or intervention to any nation's territory. So that's why I think this is much more important, that it should be supported. It need to be supported by the academic research. For example, if the academicians start to they promote irredentless nationalism in terms of Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia, it would destroy the possible peace and security in the region. So national sovereignty. Because the time is uncertain, the global uncertain. So we need integration to the global community. So in this case, at the first glance, we have to recognize each other's territorial integrity and also develop inclusive national strategy in terms of our internal the minorities in terms of ethnic and religious. So. The conclusion, I will try to complete, not to take much time. So nationalism is just inevitable, of course, but at the beginning of, let's say, in 20th century, it should be needed to how to differentiate it. For example, the young nations of the South Caucasus shouldn't they compete with Turkey, with Russia, with the US, or with China, because our priorities are different. So in this case, we need to develop different types of nationalism, which should be based on our historical background and priorities. So the South Caucasus, that's why needed, from my perspective, of course, from my research, integrated nationalism. So this strategy can secure independence and force peace without aggressive nationalism, or let's say. So now, if you don't mind, I want to stop here. Maybe we will continue with questions. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Valiyev. A very interesting presentation, and actually I took some notes, but I will keep them for the afterwards Q&A session. And actually, it's quite a concept to be studied nowadays, not only under light of what's happening worldwide, but also in this unfortunate context of war in Ukraine, because we are looking there what's happening, and we see different type of nationalism, even within the Ukrainian society, and we are all looking toward it with hope for the end of the war, and also with concern about what it will be afterwards, because I do really have my own concerns related to what is coming afterwards, because things really doesn't look so good. Congratulations, excellent. I'm looking forward to read the paper if you are going to write one.
Yes, I'm gonna publish it.
Perfect. That will be perfect. Okay, thank you. So just a friendly reminder to try to keep the track of the time, 15, 17 minutes, because otherwise we are not going to finish on time. So our next speaker is Ms. Fatjona Qurku from University of Tirana, and her presentation is 10 titled Political and Social Movements in Albania in the First Years of Transition during the period 1990-1997. Please,
Thank
15,
you.
17 minutes. I will.
I'm going to be very short because the time is flying very quickly. So I have made my presentation. It is part of my PhD thesis. I've studied in Romania, and now I'm doing my PhD here in Albania. So my thesis is particularly regarding the first year of transition from communism to democracy. And this paper, can you see it? Okay. And this paper is related to my to a small piece of in one chapter about the first year of transition. Albania has experienced a very wild and very totalitarian regime communism in Europe. It is as on the last year in which the communism was overthrown in Europe. Mostly of the international pressure and a little about the intern politics. So these social and political movements in the first year were very concentrated in some, let's say, first political parties and in some students' movements. So as the main purpose of this study, I'm going to identify their role in the transition process and in the democratization process, what it is the role of citizens in the transitional democracy and the efforts to give more competencies to the people, because you know, in a totalitarianism regime, and particularly in Albania, it was no rights, no freedom, and everything was under control of the government. So in 1990, as the European of East and other countries experienced the transitional to democracy, also Albania was the last country. And despite this, some form of unconventional participations, like protests and movements, were allowed to give way to this democratization process. So this study encouraged the civic participation, not only through the conventional concepts like elections and voting, but also in unconventional forms like protests and movements. So, and the main purpose of this study of these movements is to reserve collective memory and building new identities to this new democracy, which is in the very beginning. And I have concentrate my paper in some theoretical approaches regarding to these social and political movements, and then I'm going to describe briefly about them. And in the first year, let me explain a little bit why I have mentioned the year 1997, because in Albania in 1997 was a very crucial year about the way to transitional democracy, because it was nearly a civil war in which were engaged a lot of international corps. We have also some Romanian corps to maintain the peace and to maintain relatively stable conditions, political conditions and economical conditions, like Operation Alba, maybe you know. So these approaches for study the social and political movements in Albania, I'm going to describe them from some perspective, like an political opportunity theory. So the movements emerge and developed when changes occur in the political structure that give a citizen more room for actions. So in the Albanian case, the decline of the authority of the totalitarianism regime and the party state and the fear and the loss of legitimacy, especially after the death of our dictator, created the conditions for expressions and more room for these actions to begin. Another theory is about the mobilization theory. So this approach argues that the success of the movements depend on the ability to organize resources like human, financial, and logistical. In Albania, the organization of students, particularly the first movement, was those of movement of students and intellectuals of the University of Tirana, who led the protest and built the first political structure and the first political parties. Another theory is the collective identity theory. In the period of great changes, like the regime, the changes of the regime from totalitarianism to democrat regime, the creation of a common identity such as democratic youth, democratic intellectuals was crucial for resistance and participation. So this theoretical framework help us to understand that in Albania, the movements of this period was not only spontaneous, but also very closely to the intellectuals, to the elite, and to the social transformation that take place not in the country, but and in the other countries, so abroad. And in the last approach, the relative deprivation theory, movements arise when individuals feel deprived of rights and benefits, and they believe they should have them. So in Albania, especially the young people and the workers felt disillusioned and dissatisfied from the regime, from the communist regime, due to the low standards of the life. So they begin to gather and they begin to request more rights and more freedoms, especially in the human rights freedom. In 1990, the context of Albania was that Albania experienced a very totalitarianism regime with and in the late 80s. It was a very deep and deep economic and social crisis all over the country in all the part of the life. So it was the lack of political freedom, extreme poverty, international isolations. So the communism system, it was not able to maintain the power. So it was necessary, and from the outside news that came, like the assassination of Ceausescu was a very big that begin the whole process of democratizations. So the other cause of these movements were in big let's say part deep political and economic and cultural isolation. So in this context, the social and political movements emerge as a response to oppression and a demand for changes in the 13 in the whole aspects of the life. So how all happened and which are these political and social movements in Albania? Let's say the first one, it's a very important movement, were the students' movement. The students' demonstration of the University of Tirana begins in December 1990. They demand political pluralism and freedom in the first place, and then begin the other their request. And with these movements begin also the created of the first political party, the first opposite political party, which was the Democratic Party. In the early 90s, the political and the social movements were related to democracy and political rights, and mainly after some years related to the economic crisis. In December 1990, the first movement and the, let's say, most important of this period was till in the years 2000, was the student movement, in which they demand political pluralism, and it became a catalyst of for the overthrow of the communist regime. And as a response to these movements, the students and the intellectuals created the first the first opposite party and the Democratic Party, which took the power in 1992. And later, from 1992 to 1997, in the Albania was governed by the Democratic Party, the first opposite party. What happened to the Communist Party is that it's changed his name and also his nature, become more, let's say, in accordance with the European parties of that period. Regarding the human rights and the good economic conditions. So in 1997, we in Albania, maybe you know, we experienced a particularly phenomena which was related to the pyramid schemes. It was economic, let's say, structure that people may like a bank in which people put their money and take their interest, but it began to put their money and their savings and took the interest, but it was whole very let's say inappropriate methods of make money quickly. So in 1997, a lot of people were very disappointed from this economic policies, from this economic policies. So began massive protests and civil violence erupted. So once upon a time, the citizens begin to create a group of protests and another social movements regarding this state begin in Albania, especially in south of the country. The political parties created in their period weren't able to maintain the power and to give solution to this economic crisis. So they reorganized in a very specific government that we know in Albania. It is the reconciliation government, in which was created a government that gathered all the political party to create a more stable and a more important government. So in the period January and March 1990, particular massive protests and rebellion spread all over the country, especially in South. Institutions were burned and military depots were looted, and citizens were massively armed, which was one and very big and maybe the last of these movements against the state and the government. So in this chaos, particularly from international pressure and the domestic pressure for a peaceful end solution, once again, the international community pushed for political compromise to prevent the conflict, and the public opinion and the opposition parties demanded for a more important government to establish the whole peace. So all major Albanian political parties joined together and in an effort to stop civil war and to stabilize the country. So these were mainly two periods, very important periods in Albania that reshaped our domestic policies and politics regarding the participation of the people in the power, especially not only by voting and by elections, but by the other form, unconventional form, like protests and movements for a better solution to our problems. So the movements of this period brought significant changes in Albanian society. Like they create a multipartyism system. You know, in the totalitarianism, there is only one party system. So after the overthrow of the communism and with the beginning of these movements in Albania was created a multipartyism system, which is until now the same system. Increase civic engagements and more political and social process, developed a civil society, which is a concept that it is not known till that period. Like non-governmental organization begin to play a very important role in the policies and in the services. Changes in the social and the economic structure of Albania, like economic and social reforms begin in the Albanian society, and in conclusions, these political and social movements of 90 and 97 were a key important in the history of Albania because they demonstrate and strengthen the desire of citizens to change and to build a new democratic identity and a new open society. And however, the challenges of this period show that the transition democracy is still in a long and difficult process. So I have prepared some photos about these movements. Like it is a very common let's say in Albania in 1990s, because you know Albania was a very close country, a very isolated country, and since the process of opening towards the Europe, we begin to like Albania, like all Europe. It is a main slogan of that period. This is the overthrow of the boost of dictator, which led to massive protests and especially from the part of the students, the movement students were a very social, a very important social movement. And this is what happened in South in 1997. Sorry for my English. I hope it was a very interesting presentation, and I can hear you.
Sorry, Ioana, we don't understand, hear you.
So, okay. Now I see.
No?
Thank you. So, Fatjona, thank you very much for your presentation. Your English is just lovely. I think everybody understood everything. And actually, I took a couple of notes here. I found very interesting your collective identity theory. And I completely agree with you that democratization is a very long and sometimes very painful process. And I think we are all in the same boat. The states from the former Soviet sphere of influence, we understand the process, and even, for example, Romania is now member of NATO and the European Union. We do still have our problems and struggles and so on and so forth, but I think it's good that we are all together and maybe we can learn from each other. And from an academic perspective, we can offer some policy solution or some good practices, good governance practices, and maybe our decision maker one day, they will take them into account. Because basically, in the academia circles, or the academic circles is where the process should start, because we know the other experience and we know the theoretic part and we have the perspective of the background and so on and so forth. So congratulations again. Good luck with your PhD. You already defended it, or is work?
No, I'm still in process.
Still in process?
I'm still working on my papers.
Oh, so you will be just great. We wish you best of luck.
Thank you.
And okay, it has been brought to my attention that I don't really have the last version of the program. So Miss Tinatini Matcharashvili, sorry, I'm just going to say Tinatini.
Okay.
Please
It's
introduce
better,
yourself,
yeah.
because maybe I was quite busy nowadays with the ongoing events in Middle East. My specializations is
No
Middle East. So if everyone
problem.
if everyone is on board with this, I would very much like to give her the floor, because it looks like she should be the second on our queue. I think. Oh, perfect. Just tell us where are you coming from, because as I do not have the program, I do apologize for this, but it's very nice to meet you, and I'm sure.
No problem.
Sorry?
Yeah. So I'm Tinatini Matcharashvili. I'm from Georgia.
Perfect.
From Tbilisi State University. So I am a PhD of mass communication. And first of all, thank you for this very interesting conference. And before I start my presentation, I want to say just 2 words about the presentation of Professor Valiyev, and I am agree with that the collaboration with our countries, it's very important, and I think that in this process the role of media, it's also very important, because we need to inform our citizens about the new challenges. As you see, Today, my presentation's title is The Role of the Public Broadcaster in Raising Public Awareness International Political Processes on the case of Georgia. Our research aims to analyze the role of the Georgian public broadcaster. To achieve this goal, we attempt to answer the following research question. Okay. Against the backdrop of the international political crisis and the changing international order, has the Georgian public broadcaster been able to adequately inform the general public? So our study period starts from November 28 to February 28. And our choice was due to the statement by the Prime Minister of Georgia, and the statement was made on November 28, 2024, and I quote. Today we have made a decision not to put the issue of opening negotiations with the European Union on the agenda until the end of 2028. This announcement was followed by largest protests in various cities of Georgia, and I have to note also that this mass protest continues till this day. The Russia-Ukrainian war and presidential elections in USA was the main topics or our research. The issue of ending the Russia-Ukraine war, or at least a temporary ceasefire, is being discussed. The conclusion of this negotiation will bring change to the international political system, and this change will have the greatest impact on Georgia due to its geopolitical location. This in itself poses the need for the Georgian people to in-depth consideration of the country's foreign policy orientation. In such a situation, public discussions about the international order are necessary so that the population has a correct view of current events. Accordingly, it means that the role of the public broadcaster is also increasing. What about the methodology? So we choose qualitative content analysis, and the research objective were as follows. First of all, how many of the analytical programs were devoted to international politics? Second one, to what extent to the status of the guests of analytical programs creates the prerequisites for in-depth discussion of the issue. And a third one, what were the main messages conveyed by the journalist and invited guests? So to understand the role of our Georgian public broadcaster, it's important, I think, to read the document about the program priorities. And in this document, we have one chapter, general orientations and management tasks of the broadcaster, and then we can read. The public broadcaster should strive to become the main discussion space for the population of Georgia, where it will be possible to discuss issues important to the country, express different opinions, and hold discussions with maximum public involvement. So, in this context, Georgian public broadcaster have only two analytical programs. First one, it's a topic of the day, and second one, it's current topic. And I hope you will be agree with me that only 3 analytical programs per week a priori cannot ensure adequate airtime for discussing international politics. And now I will try to present you how the topic of the day works in our research period. And I can say that out of 12 programs, topic of the day devoted only 4 to the discussion of international politics. The February 19 program, whose guest was the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Georgia, was especially interesting. First of all, it is worth noting that topic of the day generally consists of 2 or 3 blocks, and in each blocks different views of the same topic are presented. But the February 19 program has only 1 block, which raises a logical question. Does the new agenda of international politics, assessed only from the government's position, not indicate that the public broadcaster could not provide different assessments for the population to the population at a time when the first negotiation of the end of the Russia-Ukrainian war were held between the United States and Russia, and when the program was preceded by the Munich Security Conference. Now, what about the second analytical program, current topic? There was 24 programs, and current topic devoted only 10 to the discussion of international politics. The November 28 program was particularly interesting, where the Speaker of the Parliament explained the Prime Minister's statement on why he had removed the issue of negotiations for membership in the European Union from the agenda until 2028. The question arises, why was the population not given the opportunity to hear an explanation from the Prime Minister himself or from a researcher of international relations? It is worth noting the programs from January 20 to February 70 also, of which 6 were dedicated to Donald Trump's foreign policy, the New World Order, and the Russia-Ukraine war. Out of 10 programs, only 3 featured experts, political scientists, and international relations researchers. In the remaining cases, the audience was only introduced to the views of politicians. Now what about the key messages? First of all, we can start by the assessment given by the opposition to the Prime Minister's statement and its constitutional coup. And I have to note that after even until today, the Constitutionalist has never discussed this issue in analytical programs on the Georgian public broadcaster. Now, what about 3 key messages from the Georgian government that we can hear in this television are follows. First one, we want to be part of Europe. Second one, someone tried to use the European Union as a tool. And a third one, relations will be reset with the Trump administration. So in this context, the general public needs fact-based discussion to identify the right position and to understand the context. The general public needs also the case and effects, to understand the case and effects relationship between this statement that we hear by two sides, by opposition and by government. So in conclusion, I can say that our studies show that the Georgian public broadcaster prioritize international policy issues in analytical programs, but fails to adequately respond to the needs. Provide scientifically analyzed information and create a new discussion space. So in conclusion, we can say that during our research period, the Georgian public broadcaster was less able to respond to the challenges its viewers face. Thank you for your attention, and I want to note that we continue our research, but for this conference, we decided to present only the results of our first part of our research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tinatini. Very insightful and very useful, actually. And I like your conclusion that the aim of creation new discussion space, because we can see that worldwide, actually, people are pretty much leaning either towards too much right, too much left. We kind of lost the center and that middle ground where we should meet together. And as you mentioned in your very interesting and well-informed presentation, we need analyzed information, educated opinions, and so on and so forth, because otherwise, if we keep sight on the educated discussion and analysis, we just offer fertile ground for conspiracy theories, for propaganda, so on and so forth. So basically, we need to meet up in the middle, to have that common ground, and to put in the discussion all the ideas, regardless they are from the left, from the right, because otherwise I don't think this one is going to end well, because I've been watching a little bit. I admit it's not my area of expertise, but I've been watching even the struggles from Georgia. And unfortunately, I keep saying this, that the curse of geography, I think, is very, very present in Georgia. Such a lovely country, such amazing people, and everything, it's superlative. But even Romania, if it would be, let's say, just a little bit more eastern, I think we'd be in the same situation. So sometimes you have to consider these aspects. But anyway, congratulations and keep up the good work and best of luck. And
thank you. And I agree with you that in this society very polarized, the academia will
hold the center.
Yeah, on the center, and the role of media. I think that in this context, it's set to open the new discussion spaces where the academia has the main place.
I do remember that actually I used this in one of my papers, but it was related to different topic. The famous writer Yeats, he wrote something about the center will not hold, and everything rest is falling apart at the end of the world or something. But anyway, that was written like decades ago, but it's still available nowadays, because if the center will not hold, and through center we can understand this common ground of discussion, this common place where we can meet, bringing academia together, educated information, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, I'm afraid the center will not hold. Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations, and sorry for the mix-up of the schedule. So we are a little bit late, but I think we are going to get the line. I think next presentation it's Mrs. Soochi Pathak and Nahid Hasan, an overview of Pakistan politics between the military and the mosque. Our speakers are coming from Guru Ghasidas University and Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh, India.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, Soochi, right? So you are going to be the lecturer, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I am visible and audible.
You are good. We can see your
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, all respected panelists and attendees. I, Soochi Pathak, research scholar, GGB India, and under supervision, Dr. Naid Hasan, ma'am, and she is my supervisor. Today, I am honored to present my paper titled An Overview of Pakistan's Politics Between the Military and the Mosque. The presentation focused on how military and religious institutions have significantly influenced Pakistan political landscape, often the cost of democratic stability. Let's start. I include in a introductory part political instability in Pakistan. We see that Pakistan has faced ethnic tensions, corruptions, and weak governance since 1947. Actually, since the inception of in 1947, we see country has seen only 37 years of civilian rule and 22 prime ministers. None of whom completed a full term. This fact alone raises an important question: why political instability being so persistent in Pakistan? Upon close examination, one can observe that Pakistan politics often swing like a pendulum between two dominant forces. First, the military, and second, the mosque. While there are many other factors influence the political framework, but the military and religious establishment remain at the core of power even today. And we through this military mosque alliance, we initially seen as a stabilizing force meant to protect national unity. Over time, it has turned into challenges for democratic governance in Pakistan. When we review Pakistan political history since 1947, Pakistan first general election came into 1970 after 23 years after independence. If we see a historical and structural background of Pakistan, then we see the Pakistan government formed in 1947. Actually, Pakistan formed in 1947, become the largest Muslim majority in national migration. And here is of the 95 million Muslim living in Indian subcontinent at the time, around 60 million become citizen of Pakistan, while 35 millions remain in India, thus becoming the largest Muslim minority in the non-Muslim state globally. From its very birth, Pakistan has struggled with an existential uncertainty, one that is as complex as it compelling. Despite a shared religious identity, the country has faced tremendous difficulty in defining a cohesive national identity and developing a political system suitable for its linguistically and ethnically diverse population. More than more than 20 major languages and over 300 dialectic are spoken across Pakistan. Urdu and English are official language, while other language is also tongues. This linguistic diversity has contributed a prolonged religion tensions and frequent failures in constitutional development in Pakistan. Pakistan has suffered from external and internal challenges, including full-scale war with India, strictly vulnerable border, especially the northwest frontier, requiring economic crisis also. But uh, when when in a when in the next slide the 97 break and its impact, we see the in a 1971 the most dramatically reflection of Pakistan internal crisis came when its eastern wing seconded after military defeated by India, leading of the creation of Bangladesh. This event symbolized the failure of Pakistan uh, to function as a decentralized and exclusive state. Ever since, political development has been distributed by provincial resentment, um, especially in Sindh, Balochistan, and Khyber. Against what is the perceived Punjabi domains over power, resource, institutional privileges, etc. Dominant role of the military in Pakistan politics, when we see that we find that weak civilian leadership gave military especially power. It's a first point. It should be a first point that we see a recent example. We see a recent example of military influence can be seen in general election held on in Feb 2024. Here is a where is the entire process unfolded under the shadow of the army. The election produced a hung assembly with no single party securing a clear majority. Despite a government ban on Imran Khan Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which say to PTI backed independence, won the most seat, a historic outcome. We see all 22 general election influenced by the military directly are behind the scenes. Pakistan religious identity enable army army to justify political control. When we see historical corps and military trust, then we find that in 1953, large-scale riots interrupted in Lahore against the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. The civilian government failed to control the unrest, and the military had to intervene by imposing military martial law. Although order of restored, the military influences over civilian matters began to grow during this period. The army also took a development responsibilities such as road construction and communication infrastructure, earning public trust and legitimacy. If we see early 1958 COP, we see the 1970 COP and 1990 COP. This is a very major three major COPs in my paper. And we see what's the role of mosque in politics. Is this or not? Then we find that mosques are an integral part of social life in Muslim majority societies and hold immense religious culture and political significance. While primarily centers of worship and community learning, mosques are often transformed into platform of political mobilization. Through this scene, we can understand through two cases. First case is first case study, Lal Masjid, Islamabad, 2027. One of the most controversial example of mosque politics, entanglement in Pakistan, acquired in 2007, located in Islamabad. The mosque leadership openly challenges the state, promoting radical interpretation of Islam and allegedly supporting militant conversion and terrorism-related activities. Despite several warnings from the government and security agencies, the mosque remained defended. And in a second study case, we say the Ghazi Mosque, Lahore, 2009. Another alarming incident in 2009 involving Ghazi Mosque, where a failed terror attack exposed the mosque involvement in extremist activities. If I conclude my presentation and what will be a road ahead, if military and religious instruction stay with constitutional limit, they can support democratic growth. And we see, and I can suggest that mosque and madrasas, if reformed, can foster religious and social progress. Military should focus on defense and strategic roles, not political interference. And Pakistan have to promote economic stability, attract investment, and Pakistani government should invest the education and youth skill, ensure judicial reform and political accountability, also pursue self-reliance and sustainable development. With these steps, Pakistan can become a stable and democratic and sovereign nation. Actually, we see the democracy is a main role, and a healthy democracy can make any countries the strongest. So stability of democracy in any government form, it's the most important. Military's roles another, and mosque role another for any countries. But in a Pakistan, we see instability of democracy is showing that their role, military and mosque, is so many times and so many years they rules in Pakistan government. So this is my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Very interesting takeouts, and we do know that we've been watching a little bit Pakistan, especially during the last events. They were very vocal related to the latest phase of Israel-Iran war. And I think even your takeouts brought us some light related to this mixture between religion and military concepts. And I think it worth it a while to meditate about it and to see toward are they headed. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
And we are running a bit out of time, but we are going to get there. I think the next and maybe the last speaker for this panel is Miss Giulia Patrizi. I guess Giorgi Pareshishvili maybe has been replaced with Tinatini, is it?
The last is me, for sure.
Okay. I don't know if Giorgi Pareshishvili is here with us. I don't see him. I think maybe it was a last-minute replacement. So I'm going to give the floor to you. Miss Giulia Patrizi is coming from Università di Roma La Sapienza, and she's going to bring us some light related to analysis and variation of South American migration policies and flows in the Trump era. Really, your topic is like on all the news channel, and I think all of us, we are going to listen very carefully to what you have to say. Thank you very much, and best of luck.
Thank you. And I'm just trying to share my video and the presentation. Okay, should be seen by everyone.
Yes, it's all good. You can
Yeah.
we can see.
Thanks. Okay, so my topic is very relevant because of the last Trump policies, and I'm trying to analyze the consequence all the world may impact. The title is Analysis and Variations of South American Migration Policies and Flaws in the Trump Era. As you may see, I decided to start with a general overview because in 2020 there were 281 million international migrants, representing 3.6% of the global population. This figure has really increased so much, 128 million more than in 1990, and over 3 times the number estimated in 1970. So this is having also an impact connected to the actual and the latest years. At the same time, the number of displaced persons reached an unprecedented level, 117 million worldwide, including 71.2 million displaced with their own countries. It's very important to consider also the asylum seekers because this number in the last just 2 years, so between 2020 and 2022, has significantly increased in a percentage of 30. So this means from 4.1 to 5.4 million, and is very relevant data. Migration is not just distributed by follows well-established corridors, shaped by economic, geographic and political factors. Latin America and the Caribbean to Europe also has increased, driven by local economic challenges, and also the reasons are very different. But in Europe, there are more flexible criteria to obtain a European visa and citizenship policies compared to stricter US immigration controls, especially after the 9/11. Southern Europe has become the primary European destination for those migrants. To make you understand a bit better all the topic, I started with an historical context because we can divide the historical context in 3 different phases. Migration from Latin America and the Caribbean to Europe is part of very complex historical process. The first one is colonial and post-colonial migration from basically started in the 19th century and extended into the 20th. The second one from 1960 to 1990. More or less, the aim was because the situation of the Latin America countries was very complicated. There were a lot of dictator and so on. The third one is the current phase, is more connected to economy, driven by growing socioeconomic inequalities and climate change. These flows are historical bidirectional migration pattern, and the main countries where migrations arrived are more or less 3: Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Plus, we have to add also US. These are the 3 European countries that are having a stronger impact about migration numbers. As you can see, migration trends, so there are a lot of European countries involved in this process. The number of migrants has shown significant growth. especially towards North America, in 2020. We can consider that over 25 million people from this region actually lived in North America. And for example, 1990 was just 10 million. So the percentage of number has significantly increased. This highlights, a strong and ongoing northward migration trend. Within Latin America and the Caribbean itself, around 11 million migrants reside in countries within the region. And also this trend is not changing so much. But above this, we can consider the gender distribution. In that case, we can have a very similar percentage of male and female in all the area, except for the Dominican Republic, because male migrants are more than female. Is a very specific case. Countries such as, for example, Peru, Mexico, and Brazil, or Costa Rica, host the highest number of asylum seekers in the sub-region, so in the Latin American countries and communities. Europe also has become an important destination, so we can estimate 5 million migrants from Latin America and Caribbean are actually living in Europe. So this also is an interesting data. In that sheet, we can see clearly the nationalities are migrating and where they are going, more or less. And there are a very high percentage in Spain and Portugal. This is easily to explain because there are a lot of historical or linguistic commons. So for the cultural reasons, people from Latin America can integrate easily in Spain and Iberical Peninsula. Why do people migrate? The causes of migration are very interconnected. So one of the main reasons are the lack of work. So the weakening of the welfare state with reduced public services along with the growing impact of climate change, push many people to seek opportunities elsewhere. About Southern Europe, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, there is a very strong economic growth linked to the European membership and the global restructuring of labor markets have basically generating an increasing demand of labor, initially skilled, and during the year, people that are coming are less specialized. It's important to highlight female occupations is very supported also by the government because they are working as home care and cleaning. So all job that native people don't want to do, basically, more or less. The United States is the primary destination, also because job opportunities and for diaspora networks. Here there are some numbers about the Spain case. Spain is having a lot of migrants from the South America and Central America. And this can show a general overview about what this number means. Migration comparison, Spain, Italy, and US. US is the primary global destination, and then Spain. Italy is not so relevant. We are hosting from Peru and Ecuador, but our percentage is not comparable to the Spanish one. Final consideration, the US remains the top destination for LAC migrants, but Southern Europe, especially Spain, has emerged as a major alternative hub, especially after Trump's, of course, policies. supported by favorable migration policies, shared language, strong bilateral relations. And it's important to highlight the Mexico southern border because Mexico is intensifying control over its southern border to limit the flow of the Central American migrants, especially acting as a filter for the United States. And for this purpose, they are receiving a lot of money to prevent migrants to go to US. Context migration of Mexico southern border is intensifying control, making a diplomatic actions between its government and the American one, and the purpose is really to limit the flow of the Central American migrants fleeing poverty and violence. And there are a lot of violence problems also connected to the drugs or the humanitarian crisis for safe and health reasons. What are the impact of the Trump administration? This part is very, very important because Trump's headline rhetoric and restrictive policies pressure Mexico to take a stricter immigration enforcement role, also using migration as a leverage in bilateral negotiation. The administration promote measures like border militarization and building the wall, also catalyze asylum opportunities in the US, causing anxiety among migrants. So the Mexican system is very close to collapse. What are the recommendations? Strengthen humanitarian protection and resources for Mexico Refugee Agency, the COMAR. Combat organized crime and violence with targeted programs for vulnerable migrants. Address xenophobia and promote social integration in border communities. And also make investment to stabilize the Central America and the South America area. This is always the best solution for that very weak situation and to avoid and decrease the migration. These are the remarks. So managing migration on Mexico southern border is a critical issue in US and Mexico relations that are having an impact to all the general area, shaped by the Trump administration's thought policies. And Trump's immigration policies and their impact after his re-election, Trump reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy, migrant protection and protocols, requiring migrants to stay in Mexico while their asylum cases are processed. He appointed Tom Homan, the former ICE chief and architect, the Tsar of the border, of the zero tolerance and family separation policies to oversee border operations. These are the main phases in the last few months. And basically, Trump issued several executive orders that reintroduce Remain Mexico, abolished the control of the border protection app used for asylum appointments and management, ended categorical parole programs requiring case-by-case assessment, and he's drastically reduced the Obama policies about and against the dreamers. So this will have an impact also about the economy in the US. International reactions and consequences, deportation operations sparked protest from Democrats and civil society. A diplomatic conflict arose with Colombia when President Gustavo Petro opposed accepting a convoy of deported migrants, increasing the tensions between the two government and countries. Legally, the heavy reliance on executive borders raised concerns about the US system of checks and balances. So also the Congress is showing some doubts about the measures. To conclude, there are some risks, vulnerabilities, and humanitarian responses. Migration from Latin America and Caribbean is increasingly driven not only by economic and political factors, but also by environmental and humanitarian crises. For example, in 2022, natural disasters were the leading cause of internal displacement in the region, with approximately 700,000 displacement recorded in Colombia and Cuba. In Cuba, displacement was largely due to Hurricane Ian, and in Colombia, flooding was the primary cause. So there are also, in addition to this, the Venezuelan crisis, a regional impact, because Venezuelan people and the Venezuelan diaspora is one of the largest displacement crises globally. Over 6.7 million Venezuelans have migrated to Latin America and Caribbean. More than 2.3 million are living in vulnerable conditions, often with irregular status. And about this, Trump is making a specific orders for Venezuelan. Security and migration, these are
Please
the
wrap it
proposed
up.
solutions.
We are running a bit of time. Thank you.
Sorry, just to conclude, these are the relevant data, new permanent migrants, family reunification. These are my suggestions. So to implement asylum applications, employment rate, and family reunification, because the tendency is to decrease the potentiate, but is very important. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Julia, and congratulations. Actually, it's a very timely topic. We've been seeing all around the news this problem, and it's quite interesting to see what the American people society is thinking about these policies, because basically we have to admit, on the other hand, that President Trump has been elected, including on this platform, to contain and control migration, because it's a little bit lost of control. I'm not the one to say if his practices are the most fitted and perfect one. I do remember also, I've been living about a little bit over 10 years in the United States, and I do remember that there is a problem with illegal process of migration. And also I remember that during the Bill Clinton administration, 12 million people has been deported. During Obama, 5 million people have been deported. But it has been done, I don't know if through other measures, but at least the public rhetoric, the public speech was a bit different. And maybe that's why nobody was so aware of it. Now, yes, we can see the ICE members. We've seen what happened recently in California. So basically, I don't know if the measures are not the same, but they are delivered differently. It is a real and troubling problem in the United States, because actually, as far as I know, there are 4 Mexican cartels controlling basically the United States. So basically, it is a deep problem. I also been living few years in San Martin in Caribbean, and I am a bit aware of these problems, which you very well mentioned, and put them in an academic dimensions. Congratulations again. So it's almost quarter to time. I mean, in Romania it's 1:45, but accordingly to our program, it should be 1:45. And we will have another panel where Professor Valiyev, I think, is the chair. I am a speaker there. But I think we can give us a few more minutes, because we are online, so we can, you drink water, coffee, and take a short break in between. If you do have some questions for one another, or if there are any questions from our audience, because I see we have here a few more beside the speakers, please do not hesitate to raise hand, and just to keep the questions short and maybe the answer short, and hopefully of all of your papers, of all of your research, we shall get to see them in one of the CESRAN publications. I intend to send mine a few weeks later, so, and maybe we can take it from here, from this point to the next edition. This edition I should come, but I had a problem with my left leg, and I'm quite in the situation to not be able to travel. Even my travel to Tirana was quite a hassle because I had that protection for my knee, but it really didn't work well. So here I am on my chair. So anyhow, if you, I do myself, I have a couple of questions, but please, if you do have, please proceed. Just raise hand. You have the react options. Where is the heart? Just raise hand if there are any questions for our panelists. Nobody? I have a question then, actually. Actually, I have a question for Professor Valiyev. Your presentation is just amazing, and honestly, it brought me many pieces of new knowledge, which I didn't study them in depth before. Because we are speaking nowadays about nationalism, not only in, I don't know, Caucasus or Romania or Ukraine, but pretty much worldwide, Europe, in United States. From my point of view, even American exceptionalism is a kind of nationalism. But okay, we use different concepts, but pretty much the base of those concepts is the same. And I think you propose here integrated nationalism versus or aggressive nationalism, and I really like that approach, because I think we cannot ignore nationalism or patriotism, as you want to put it, because when you look, for example, toward the war in Ukraine, I mean, what is the main drive beyond the willing of the Ukrainian people to fight against the Russian invasion, if not nationalism and patriotism? Basically, on one hand, we are trying to explain, or maybe sometimes even in Romania is happening this, to put a bad label on nationalism, to frame it as something very bad, which we have to put it aside or to put it undercover. But on the other hand, when we look at the bravery of the Ukrainian people, we have to admit that the main driver behind their will and their fighting is basically nationalism, because they are fighting for the sovereignty and the right to be independent and identity, so on and so forth. So basically, on one hand, we are promoting and supporting this in Ukraine, but in other countries, we try to put a blanket over it and to pretend it doesn't exist. So how do you explain, or what is your take on this, if you don't mind?
Thank you for your question. Yes, I argue as well that the nationalism is the main solution on the table within the politics. In terms of Ukraine, as the post-Soviet country, they needed, how to say, the not proactive nationalism that they started to maybe develop much more prices in terms of this issue. But for example, in order to start the how to say proactive the politics with Russia anyway, but you need the legal memberships. For example, they started to run membership to the NATO, right? But it's uncertain issue, so they don't have legal membership to the NATO. So in comparison with Turkey, for example, Turkey is a member of NATO and also the second how to say member of the NATO. So it's not possible to threat how to say Turkey, because if some country, let's say Russia or any Syria or any kind of the countries start to threat Turkish how the sovereignty, it will equal threatening of NATO, because the Turkish borders is also the borders of the NATO. So, because for example, Turkey came to the South Caucasus after the Second Karabakh War, not just members of the Turkic World Organization. Before that, as a NATO member country, they came to the South Caucasus. But in terms of Ukraine, they don't have legal or membership to the NATO. So in the conflict with Russia, so NATO does not have the right for the legal intervention to this issue. So before they needed, from my perspective, they needed different types of nationalism. Ukraine started to integrate aggressive and destructive nationalism of the, let's say, US or the European Union. Their ambitions, their potential, their aims are totally different, right? For example, the US aggressive and destructive nationalism started to compete with China, for example, in the uncertain time of the politics in the 21st century. But however, in terms of Ukraine, the priority is that integration of territorial integrity, right? Keep national sovereignty. But however, from my perspective, of course, the political science is not mathematics, can be falsified.
Right.
But however, I argue that in comparison with, for example, Azerbaijan, Ukraine failed in terms of this national strategy. For example, after the victory in Karabakh, Azerbaijan could have started a new, interventionist nationalist, the war to the Armenian border. But from the highest levels of politics, presidents, they told that no, we started this for just liberation of our invaded territory, which is recognized by the international law. That's all. Right after that, we will start, president said that, we will start, the renovation of the liberated territory. And we will just enhance our regional cooperation in terms of the South Caucasus, in terms of the Turkic organization. Even we start to have cooperation with EU in terms of energy issues, even with Russia, despite any disputed issues and so on. So, but in terms of the Ukraine, I believe that Ukraine is not Germany, Ukraine is not France, Ukraine is not Great Britain, for example. That's why they need different types of nationalism that would facilitate integration of territorial integrity, because nationalism came to the table of politics just to be survived. But in terms of Ukraine, they prefer proactive nationalism to integrated nationalism, because the capacity cannot be compete with US or let's say UK, for example. This is a main problem from my perspective, of course.
Yeah, but do you think, for example, after the war, it will come to an end? Do you hope it will come to an end? And
of course,
how they will manage?
But with what, for example? So it's not possible to predict that someone will win this war, because for example, Azerbaijan, let me compare. For example, Azerbaijan launched the war, just completed after 44 days. That's all. In Shura, the president ordered that, okay, that's all. This is about success. So in terms of the war in Ukraine, more than 2 years, so uncertain future. So they lost all the resources. Because this is a main issue. For example, on the eve of the war, Atatürk and his friends, the colleagues, called him that, yes, we should get, for example, the place where you were born. Now I can't remember the place name where Atatürk was born. So he told them, no, we cannot, afford it. It's not affordable. So we have to focus on Anatolia. So, to survive the part of the Turkey. So that's why he succeeded and established Republic. So in terms of Ukraine, they lost many of the resources in terms of the human capital, so the economic resources, military resources, anyway. So before that, they didn't have well-established military industry, for example.
Yeah.
So that's why before that, you need to calculate your capacity, resources, and then define your the priorities and the politics. This is what my perspective.
Thank you very much, Professor Valiyev. Okay, anybody else? No? I have many more questions, but actually it's like in a few minutes time we should start the second panel, and we want to give Professor Valiyev sometimes maybe to have a coffee, drink some water, and make few steps, because I know it's a little bit challenging to be set for many hours. I want to congratulate all of you. It has been a pleasure, and very, very interesting takeouts from all the presentations. And congratulations to our lovely organizers. And really, they are doing a great job. It's like already the 12th edition. For me, is the third, just the third. But last year, it was very nice to meet some of you in Venice. And God will, next year, we shall meet again in person. Again, congratulations, everyone, and best of luck, Fatjona, for your thesis and for the others.
Thank
I
you
think
very much.
Soochi, I think also you are preparing your thesis. Best of luck in the future. I think the best is yet to come. Looking forward to meet you, maybe in person, anytime soon. Now, let's take a short break, and I think some of us we shall meet for the second panel. Professor Valiyev, thank you for your patience, because I know...
Pleasure. As you mentioned, we are online, so we can change the time. So it's
yes, I have here water and coffee.
We have time for taking coffee.
Yes. Best of luck to all of you. Again, congratulations to CESRAN committee. You are doing great job, and please keep up the good work, because actually we need you. And see you next time, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.